I learned something. I discovered something at the furthest possible you can get in the release notes in the deprecated section. And I'm going to keep that as a cliffhanger.
Stay tuned for deprecation.
Stay tuned for what Ulrika learned that she should have known long ago from this release wave. So fasten your seatbelts, people. It's going to be a wild ride.
Welcome, everyone, to the PowerPlatform Boost podcast, your weekly source of news and updates from the world of the Power Platform and the Microsoft community with your host, Nick Dolman and Ulrika Akabek. Hello.
Hello. Hey. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. So this is going to be another one of our release wave episodes. So this is probably the third or fourth one we've done over the course of our podcasting career lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Not your podcasting career lifetime, because you have had a lifetime of podcasting before me, but our Boost thing. Yes. The first one we did is actually one of the most popular episodes of all time. Guess we were funnier then. So, before we get, sorry.
Go ahead. No, you have the floor.
No, I was just going to say that before everyone kind of wonders if anyone wonders what we're talking about. We're talking about the release wave, the release plans, the Wave 1 2025. And Microsoft likes to schedule the news and updates for Power Platform, Dynamics 365, and now Copilot to twice a year. Well, they'll give us the release notes in January and August, and in there is the plans for what's coming from March until October, or October until March. So we now have our hands on the MVP pre-released version, and we're pre-recording, and we have to go through to make sure that everything's all the things that we talk about is actually in the published ones, and then we can publish it. This is freshly squeezed for you.
Yeah, and this is why we're a day late, because normally we release on Wednesday. This is going to be released according to our plan on Thursday. So we're probably going to give you a bit of a heads up that we're going to be, you've probably seen already in social media that we've not done yet, that we're going to be a day late. So hopefully that doesn't disrupt your plans. Maybe if you're people that only go in the office once a week, and you always do it Wednesdays, so you can listen to Boost. Hopefully this doesn't screw you up.
Yeah, it's going to mess your week up. So you're going to think that you're a day before for the rest of the week. You know that feeling when you think that it's Friday and it's Thursday, so you get kind of a day extra? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get an extra day because realizing you have a deadline on Friday and you're like, oh, it's only Thursday, get an extra day? Or it's Thursday and you're like, oh, it's Friday, I have a day off tomorrow. Then you realize you don't. So it depends on where your head's at.
Yeah, that's true. It's both ways. Right. So what we normally do is we go through the release waves independently. And so this is a format that we picked up from Lisa Crosby and Megan Walker when they did the upcoming podcast, where they would go through the release waves independently and pick 5 favorites and then talk about them. Now, of course, we are prepared that we might have chosen the same ones. So I kind of have a few backups, and usually you play Megan and you play by the rules, and I play Lisa and I don't play by any rules. So I have a lot of favorites.
And the thing is, I counted, there's, I think, 60 some individual new features, and this is just in the Power Platform. I haven't looked in the Dynamics one, or there's a Copilot one as well.
Yep.
So we're just focused on Power Platform. Okay.
Yeah, I looked through them, and for data, so for the Dynamics 365 is, of course, then targeted towards the business apps. So that'll be sales, customer service, marketing, customer insights. that kind of thing. And I don't have my hands in that porridge, as we would say in Norway, enough to kind of get a context into what that's all about. So for me, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But we're diving into some customer service stuff at customers any day now. So I'm going to get my head wrapped around those news. And of course, having one dedicated to Copilot is interesting. So if you need updates on that specifically, you can go in and look at that. And that will include, I guess, the news for updates on Copilot. And in kind of, I think that's going to kind of mix the two and kind of combine everything Copilot in one. So what we do is we go through the release wave from top to bottom, going through the product as it's listed in the release notes, and of course also giving you a kind of an insight into what kind of investment areas Microsoft is looking into, and also giving you a bit of sense of when the items that we talk about, the functionality we talk about, is going to be released into public preview and general availability. That would be GA. And so any kind of overall, what's your feeling? When you read through this, what was the kind of the overall feeling that you got?
The feeling I got is we're still living in this AI age. And of course, agents is the buzzword of the day. And I think as we're beginning to go through this, of course, they use that word a lot. And I think the word agent, from what I'm discovering in my own explorations and experimentations, is this means different things to different people. Is an agent something that's really just an automation of sort? Is an agent something that is using generative AI to go and make decisions and that type of thing? Is like you writing a function of code, is that an agent now? So these are the types of things I think it's going to become very clear of what that really means. Of course, we hear Satya Nadella there was a blog or a podcast interview, and he's like, everything's going to be agents. Well, it's like, okay, are you slapping a label on it, or does this actually mean something? So plan designer, because I see plan designers as one of the investment areas. The release plan, of course, is very Copilot AI heavy. Not to say that there's not other features as well. The thing is, I think with Microsoft announcements at Ignite, they're becoming a lot more public of what they're working on and what they're actually in progress. So a lot of these things aren't necessarily a big surprise to us. It used to be, I would say, and maybe this is just my perception, used to be when the release wave went out, you'd read through it, you go, oh, wow, that looks so cool. I can't wait till that comes out. Now it's like, okay, I knew that's coming. They already showed that up at Ignite. Oh, but now there's actually dates of when we'll be able to get our hands on it, or the general public will be able to get their hands on it, kind of thing, right? So I think it's almost when you want to call Ignite the spoiler alert conference, because all these things that are coming, they've kind of already told us were coming. There's a few things that kind of caught my eye that are sort of new, but overall, there's nothing that really, not to say they weren't exciting, but I also want to say it's nothing that it's like, oh, this is completely new. I've never heard of this before. It's still mostly stuff that we know is coming. We've seen, whether it demos directly from Microsoft, we know that we're involved in some private previews, or there's things that they've already kind of announced already. So that's sort of my feeling. I don't know what you're feeling on it.
I know it's sort of the same, but I think we say the same thing about Ignite, actually. Funny you should bring that up, because usually it was that they hold off a huge announcement for Ignite, for instance. And now we see that we know already before Ignite usually what's coming. And so I think that the age of that big announcement surprise, they don't have the luxury, they don't have the time to do that, because they have to deliver faster than that, so they don't have that luxury anymore. But yeah, I had the same feeling you did. It was reading through it, it was a lot of things that we already knew. So already, kind of spoiler alert, you're probably not going to discover anything new from what we're going to go through, but it may be a new to you. Actually, that's not true, because I, for one, I learned something, I discovered something at the furthest possible you can get in the release notes in the deprecated section, and I'm gonna keep that as a cliffhanger.
Stay tuned for deprecation.
Stay tuned for what Ulrike learned that she should have known long ago from this release wave. So fasten your seatbelts, people. It's going to be a wild ride.
That's the ultimate teaser when it's like on the news, right? Like, this thing could be poisoning your house. Stay tuned at 11 and we'll tell you.
Oh, yeah, I know. And you would not believe what this old lady knitted over Christmas. I'm like, I don't give up. But that's okay. Enough of the chit chat. Let's get stuck into it. Usually these episodes go on for hours and hours. We don't have that time. So let's get cooking. First and foremost, PowerApps. The three major investment areas for this release wave in terms of PowerApps are Plan Designer, first and foremost, and I am sure we're going to talk more about that. It is to help you with the phase that comes before you push the button and you create your app. It's setting the data model list. It's looking at the requirements, what user roles, what security roles, who do you need, what data do you need, that sort of thing. Extensible in-app agents. There you go. First hit of the buzzword. So now everyone take a shot of ginger something. Every app is intelligent and help you build in your flow of work. So you'll have agents in the background, in your face, in your designer, in everything. And then third, bring your own agents. So the ability to bring your own custom agents into PowerApps to contribute on an app, to oversee its work and to understand what's going on. That's also a big investment area for them. So they have now divided the new functionality coming or the release plans into three areas. It's building modern apps, it's Copilot for Power Apps makers and users, and it's enable enterprise scale. So I'm going to let you go first. What is kind of for Power Apps, do you have a favorite thing you want to highlight?
Well, basically a summary of things. So of course there's like six items that we can see at this point. A couple ones I'll just quickly briefly mention before I get into my favorites. Select columns downloaded on a mobile device. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. I think that's important if you're doing offline. Manage your source code for Canvas apps. We have seen a little bit of this as well. Of course, going to the YAML format, and there's some places where you can actually use the YAML. We've talked about this in past episodes. So that's actually going to be public preview May 2025 and general availability June 2025. So that's a good thing. But my favorites are sort of it's a little bit of it's kind of three things related, but again, using Copilot in model-driven apps, being able to do the form assistance. So basically filling in forms from other data. We've seen demos of this already. That's really cool. Again, that's going to be available in public preview in February, I believe, which is pretty good. Getting an AI summary. If you work in model-driven apps, and I think some of the apps that we work on, there's just so much information. We have this big, huge form, and there's tons of fields. And of course, there's the timeline and all this other stuff. So I know for users, they're like, oof, all of this information. Now it's going to be like an AI summary. Like we can summarize a document or summarize an email thread. We'll get a summary of all that information. That actually is really cool. And again, I believe this is already beginning to roll out. I've not actually played with it yet, but it's going to be general availability in April. So I think that's just going to be a bit of a game changer in our end user experience with model-driven apps. And talking about a few other things, being able to find records and filter views using natural language. One of the things when I train model-driven apps or when I used to train customers, we focused a lot on advanced find because that's the key thing, how to find this information. Well, now using natural language.
Who are, wait, those who are born in the new experience, you have to explain what advanced find is.
Yeah, that's so like basically it's still, you can find it, but you see all these lists of records and stuff and you would go into the advanced find. So I want to find all the wage subsidy agreements from last April. You would go in and advanced find, here's the record you're looking for. Here's the date range, maybe a certain type or a certain dollar value. You have to put in all of these values into your advanced find. You could save that as a personal view. So that's how it's in the views. Now you save these as personal views, and then you'd be able to get that record subset and find your data. If you're not overly clear in how data modeling works or something, this can be a little bit of a challenge for some users. There's other users that I found got it right away, but it's always been, you might be, as a former boss of mine said, data rich, but information poor. So advanced find was always a very cool thing to actually help you find it, but it was a little bit tedious and it was a little bit, had to get your head wrapped around it. So this, by being able to find this information by just asking it, as opposed to going in the advanced find, putting these parameters, just say, hey, show me the wage subsidy agreements from April 2023. And then this should go out, find that information and display it to you. So that again cuts down on your time, allows your apps to be more accessible by users. So those are the key highlights out of PowerApps that I'm really excited about. And just kind of, this to me is now bringing your app value to the next level.
Yeah, awesome. You kind of touched on a lot of these, a lot of the most important things that I found as well. And also just as that when advanced find is going away, fetch XML and builder in Extreme Toolbox is my go-to at the moment, because I know that the find is a bit slow. So my highlight of for PowerApps is actually the plan designer. I think that the promise of this is amazing, and we've talked about it before, how it can help plan out solutions to business problems. I don't see this becoming something I use in production. I think it's still going to be a POC kind of helper tool. So the idea that Microsoft seemed to think that we're going to be able to use this and trust that this is going to do it right in a production scenario is just not going to happen in my view. But as a, like I said, as a POC tool or as a demo tool, or just to help you find errors in your own work, or to validate your own work, or for a junior to kind of get a head start, it's a good thing. So next time I'm creating something for a specific use case, I'll make sure to try the plan designer first to see what that comes up with, and maybe use that as a starting point. But I will definitely make it from scratch, because I like that level of detail still, and have that control. I think that goes for a lot of people. And this is public preview in December 24. So this has been out for a little while already, but it's going to be GA in September of 25. So it's still a long way away from being at a point where Microsoft even thinks that it should be general available, and that's when you can use it in production. So this has to be used with care, and you have to make sure to give it feedback. So if you experience weird things or you experience great things, make sure to give that feedback to Microsoft, because they're waiting for it. And if we don't use it and we don't give the feedback, they're going to push the GA. They always do, if they don't have enough intel for it to be safe. And also make sure to enable it. So you have to actually go in, because this is disabled by default. You have to go in and try the new PowerApps experience to get the plan designer. So make sure to do that if you want to check it out.
Yeah, and you don't need the preview environment anymore. That was something a couple of weeks ago when I did my video on it. At that point, you needed to enable it on a preview environment. I noticed yesterday I was playing around with some stuff, and it was actually enabled on just one of my regular dev environments. Like, still, you have to turn on the new experience, and they do explain its preview, but this should now be available for most everybody that's listening to this. If you want to try it out and see. We're keen to know what your results and what your feedback is. Of course, provide that feedback to Microsoft as well, so they can make the tool better.
Yeah. Definitely. So moving on to PowerPages, the key investment areas here are web agents, intelligent, and hold on to your socks, chatbots who engage across email, Teams, and WhatsApp. AI-assisted form filling, dynamic list revisualization, and governance policies for PowerPages. They are making some investments into the design studio. So you're going to have a few different enhancements there. And of course, they've listed a few new features, but not a whole lot. So a bit thin on the PowerPages side of things. So what was your favorite thing?
I think it was interesting. A lot of, I think in terms of stuff that I think is going to help a lot of people is the ability to have a better file upload process. That's always been a pain point for uploading files in PowerPages. So there's a new experience, which should be general availability June 2025. The other thing that caught my eye, and I'm glad it did. So in terms of stuff, and I knew this was sort of coming, but the set up Microsoft Entra external ID with a wizard. So I went through the other day because people are asking me questions based on some of the other videos I've done regarding Entra external ID. So I went through the process and set it up in one of my own environments. But of course, that I have to go into Azure and do a lot of extra configuration there. So I was thinking, okay, I should make a blog or video on the Entra setup, plus a few other, things. But the fact that we're going to get a wizard that's going to do that for us, I thought, okay, this is going to make some of my videos go out of date real fast. But this is really going to accelerate that. So I'm holding off on making a video on that until we get the wizard. So in case anybody's really looking for it. So that jumped out as from a content creator perspective, okay, I could hold off on that point of view. But I think it's good because I think that was something funny. We had the wizard for the Azure AD B2C in PowerApps portals. We lost that wizard when they flipped to PowerPages, which was really weird. But now we're going to get that wizard back. So again, you should not use local authentication. You should use an external provider. We've preached this from the mountaintops multiple times. Despite I know the fun that you're having with setting up external identities right now. But this is the way. So that was cool to see. That's in public preview in April of 2025. The GA is nothing there yet. So hopefully it'll be pretty quick turnaround. And then everything else, there's adding more stuff with Copilot. Yeah, we've seen that. We know what it does. The new modern list, enhancing with custom JavaScript and new controls. That to me is interesting, using the list component. Although I think a lot of times for some of the projects we work on, we kind of build our own custom data visualizations, especially now with the web templates as components. But that being said, I know a lot of people still use the list. So it's kind of nice to know that that's being enhanced and extended, because that list control that's sort of there now is the main one. That's been part of ADX for like probably 10 years. So it's nice to see that that's getting a facelift and getting some love. So yeah, not a lot in PowerPages, but still. Oh,
no, that's weird that you read it like that, because I read it the other way around. Because what it said in the description is that now you have the old and out-of-the-box list as we've had for a long time, but also when you add a list through the new designer, you have the ability to turn on the new list experience. Now, that, of course, does not have the ability to add custom JavaScript or new controls to it. So what they're actually doing is updating the new control, the new list control, to have the ability to add JavaScript and to add other new components to it. So maybe we need to go back and read it again as we read it differently. But, I think the essence is the same, that you can now hopefully add JavaScript, custom JavaScript to a list from the Studio Designer, and also with the new list experience, and not only the old one. So because that is a lot better than the old one.
Yeah, so it's more of a parody kind of play versus a new feature. Like, it's still existing features, but in the new thing.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of that. If you know PowerPages well and you dig into what the designer can do, it's not a lot compared to what you can actually do in the model-driven app. And I am working with upskilling a colleague on PowerPages these days, and he discovers new things daily. And it's like, why did you show me this to begin with? And I'm like, well, if I show you the whole of the model-driven app to begin with, you would drown in information, boy. So it's, all in due time. But yeah, so let's move on to Power Automate. This is turning into Nick's favorite because you touch on everything. So moving on to Power Automate, we have AI first as kind of the big, no surprise. It's the big investment area with Power Automate. So and it's a bit interesting. Dynamic, multimodal, and self-healing automations with built-in AI through generative actions and intelligent document processing. Build intelligent workflows through a rich human-in-the-loop experience. It sounds very promising, especially the self-healing automations that really caught my eye. And then also enterprise ready, end-to-end management of cloud and desktop automations through the new process map, enterprise ready observability, orchestration, and resource optimization. So that's very, very interesting. So of course, for Power Automate, we talk about cloud flows. That's one kind of category of new features, Copilot for Power Automate and desktop flows. So which one did you pick as your favorite for Power Automate?
I'll just say one. It is the process maps, because you know what it's like to debug flows and the whole end-to-end experience. It's always a little bit tricky to see what went wrong where. So to me, that was a thing that really jumped out. And of course, there's a lot of other cool stuff, but to me, it's like having worked with flows and having to sometimes go back and even flows you've created or what other people created to kind of debug where things went wrong. Self-healing, honestly, scares me a little bit because it's like, oh, you're going to go and fix this on your own? I don't know if this is like sending your 3-year-old out with a chainsaw to cut down a tree and you're just going to stay in the kitchen kind of thing. I'm not sure. Well, we'll see. I mean, we have to trust the process as well. What things popped out for you?
So I have the same ones you, the process maps, because so what it says is that it will visualize end-to-end process dependencies. And also it's an easier way to navigate through the whole automation logs and connections. And so what's going on, and also to follow the data. So you can view and manage all flow dependencies across parent and child, desktop flows, and work queues. So that's completely new. That's not something that we have already today. So that's why that kind of triggered me, because we have also a bit of a complex hierarchy of child parent flows, just because that's in the nature of the work that's being done. But sometimes it's hard to kind of get to follow the data, and there's a lot of steps you have to take and a lot of tabs open at the same time to kind of track data across these. So that's going to be absolutely fantastic to be able to visualize that in a process map. Sorry.
I would say I have another favorite, but I'm going to let you go because you're probably going to tell me it.
No, sure. Go ahead.
So when you're writing Power Automate flows, and this is to you and to everybody listening, don't you just love working with the expressions and it having that under squiggly line, or there's an error of the expression and you can't get the beeping thing to work right? So the one thing that it is actually a public preview now is to create and edit expressions with Copilot. So this, to me, I love the promise of this. I'm hoping Copilot cooperates, but writing expressions, because it's slightly different than PowerEffects. It's slightly different than JavaScript. It's one of these things that were, of course, created way back when. Sometimes it works, but sometimes I really struggle with it. So this is something that did pop out to me. It's like when you're doing complex stuff, it's like it was a pain. Now there's a Copilot to help out. So I'm really hoping Copilot is a really good buddy on me on this one. So that caught my eye.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And also, of course, if you're new to it, it's a great learning tool. Also another thing, because I don't do a lot of work with desktop flows, but I saw this and I thought, if I did, I'm sure this would be huge. The ability to use machine to credential mapping in desktop flow connections. So it's a way to kind of set up which machines can use which credentials, kind of define that as a list, and then have that set up to use the desktop flow connections and benefit from the same credential management features such as encryption and data protection, password rotation, and application lifecycle management. So I just wanted to mention that for the desktop flow users out there, because I bet that's going to be a game changer.
You sound like someone that has a little bit of post-traumatic stress syndrome from dealing with connection and connection references lately.
I may have empathy for those who work with it. Yes. Right. So moving on to the big one, the big hitter here, Microsoft Copilot Studio. It's still a part of the Power Platform, even though copilots and agents are everywhere. The studio for making copilots still reside inside of the same bunch as the rest of these. So it says that 2025 release Wave 1 brings support for and integration for custom agents with Microsoft 365 Copilot. So that would be the big one, the mama son and the papa son of Copilots. New capabilities for the Studio embedded builder in Microsoft Copilot, including support for actions, additional enterprise knowledge sources, and the ability to upgrade a Copilot agent, also referred to as a declarative agent, to an independent Copilot Studio custom agent that can access additional capabilities and be published to other channels. So it's kind of a conversion thing then, I guess. So going from, I guess that means if you have a flow, you can convert it into an agent. And then new conversational channels for custom agents, such as WhatsApp and SharePoint. The 4 areas here is Copilot and AI innovation, Copilot configuration, core authoring, and then speech and IVR. So anything stand out for you?
Nothing in particular. I like the fact that it is, the thing is the Copilot Studio, I'm not in it every day because the projects we're working on we're not quite there yet. We're close. But when I go in to try something out or try to build something for myself, I find Copilot Studio, the user interface changes on a weekly basis. And I know some of the other folks working on building labs and things, it drives them crazy as well because, you start building a workshop on Copilot Studio and then all of a sudden deliver it like, oh shoot, the UI has changed. And I know this has happened a couple times, and I did get a text from somebody, and I won't mention any names, Daniel, that were kind of grumbling about the fact that the UI has changed again. So I know it has nothing to do with the release plans. Just know that I think this is one of the bigger lists. But I like the things like test and debug agent actions because I am trying to work on a few use cases just to get my head wrapped around it. And just trying to figure out where something has gone wrong or that's not quite working right. Or is it something that I'd even need to worry about working on the more advanced agents? That's something that I'm kind of excited about just to make that user interface. I hate to say it, as much as Microsoft, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, as much as Microsoft likes to say, oh, it's easy, anybody can make an agent. Some of the use cases that I've been running into, it's like, it's not that easy. There's a lot of moving parts. And of course, maybe my use cases are really complex, but to go in and to know what to do and where to do it, it's really not that intuitive. Sorry, I'm just going to say it. And it's not intuitive to me. Some of the things are, yeah, for sure. I can throw in some PDFs and some knowledge and make a chat bot on it. That's really cool. But once I want this agent to be triggered on an email coming in. I want this to be triggered on a schedule. Those types of things. It's like, yeah, to wire this all together. And I know Lisa Crosby has some good videos on that. That's helped me over a few humps. So I think this whole experience, I get it. You're excited, but you need to make it a little bit more approachable. And I think some of the things I'm seeing here in terms of the, discovering and adding some other suggested prompts and things. If we can make that a little bit flow, a little bit smoother, then we're going to have better adoption with agents. I think we're going to see a bit of an adoption. I don't want to say a learning curve. So again, if you're worried about AI taking over your jobs, not really. I think there's a lot of opportunity here. And again, maybe I'm just completely missing something. I've done a lot of cool things with Copilot Studio. There's a lot of things that I was led to believe by marketing is easy, and it's not. And I actually have screenshots of Copilot going completely off the rails. So anyways, rant over. Copilot Studio.
You say that, but we all know it's not true. It's not over.
No, this rant is over.
Okay, this particular one is over. Well, I something that caught my eye with the feature that you're mentioning, which by the way is public preview in January, so you'll be able to see this pop up in your environments any day now, and GA in May, is the last piece of the feature, which was simulated test data. Creating a set of test data allows makers to verify the functionality in a controlled environment. It does not say who creates. It just says creating a set of test data allows makers. Is it the agent that creates the test data? Is it you that creates the test data? I'm not sure, but it says simulated test data. It makes me hopeful because one of the big hurdles lately in multiple projects of mine is that the test data that we're working on isn't good enough. And the quality of the solutions that we're making can only be as good as the test data. So this is really big. And it's speaking to your point directly that when you're troubleshooting something, the data needs to be there, or else you can't follow and see what troubleshoot and see what's wrong. So I absolutely agree. This is one of my favorites as well. And I also saw the enrich agent with third-party data using extensions. This will be a public preview in February and GA in May. I have a feeling this might be delayed. Not sure why. But this is the ability to connect to third-party data sources using a pre-built extensions. So extensions combine connections, topics, flows, and configuration files to quickly enable agents to access third-party data for domain-specific use cases, such as prospects to cache, configure price quote, benefit, compensation, and IT help desk. I think the third-party data, the extension into third-party data is kind of the key to unlocking the next level of these agents, because we've all seen the demos and we go, oh, I wonder when this can book my holiday for me. And you go, well, it can't because it doesn't have access to any of the external sources or information that it needs. But now with this, it will. So for me, this is the number one thing. And also I saw something else. If I can just mention one more thing. That you can now add suggested prompts to a custom Copilot, which hasn't been possible before, and it's GA in May. So, and it's fun when they say, frequently cited problem with conversational AI solutions. So they kind of admit that they have had some feedback on this, is that users can't discover what it can do. And this is common with voice interfaces as well. It's hard. We're used to the UI, the graphical, the GUI, the graphical user interface, where we see what can be done through cues on what we see. So you see a button, it affords to be pushed. It's common user usability kind of patterns. So with voice, that's hard because you can't see it, and if it doesn't tell you, you don't know it. And the same goes for prompting. You don't know what's possible because you can't see it. So now you can add those, the little star icon thing. You can add those suggested prompts to custom Copilots as well. So that's pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be so useful as well. Just, to see, I didn't know you could do that. Even if you don't use it that time, but just the mental cue to know that it is possible.
Mm-hmm. Next up, are you finished with the Copilot stuff? Did you have anything else you wanted to highlight?
Not right now.
Okie dokie. Do you know that this is a podcast, right? So shaking your head doesn't really work.
Oh, we're video podcasts. We get a lot of video views.
Oh, we do? You would know.
I'm like, I have no idea. Like the little kid on a phone, right? Where you're sort of like, did you have fun today?
And for those of you who did not understand that joke, you have to watch the video to see what he did.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so next one up is AI Builder. Now, this is an old friend of mine. We played with AI Builder for, 5-6 years ago or more. And it was fun then, and it's still fun. And I'm happy to see Microsoft making some licensing changes to make these the AI Builder capabilities, available across the board. But the kind of the key investment areas here is the latest AI Builder release enhances content and decision intelligence with advanced capabilities in document processing and prompt engineering. And that is integrated with Copilot Studio. And this is kind of the new interface for AI Builder as the prompt library. We're probably touch on that somewhere. The document processing agents will providing an out-of-the-box data engine specialized in document processing, allow you to monitor, validate, and control your document processing workflow at scale. And then the prompt builder will give you new tools to extend and customize AI actions. New features include the ability to diversify the set of inputs and data sources that can be processed through the maker prompt. So for instance, you can generate, not read, generate different content types, including documents, going beyond just text and JSON formatting. So that's very interesting. And so the three different categories we have are build intelligent solutions with AI capabilities, extend Copilot capabilities with AI, intelligent document and email processing, and then prompt builder as the fourth category here. So what was the thing that stood out the most for you?
Well, I've only started to work a little bit with Prompt Builder, and that is, as I just pooped on Copilot Studio. I love AI Builder. So I'm not into AI, but AI Builder for years. It's like it could do so many cool things, and the ability to make your own custom prompts, I think, is really amazing. That's just like a really cool feature that you can begin and fill in parameters into that. So the ability to work with the process and then generate the documents with those prompts. I think it's going to open up a lot of new use cases and things like that. So the whole prompt builder aspect of AI Builder, that's something as I'm learning the new features and beginning to use it in actual real use cases. To me, this is where it's kind of cool to see the investment. And it's also cool to see the investment that, AI Builder was a thing. And then for a while, not that I say it went quiet, but people just weren't all that excited about it. But it seems to be, I think, AI Builder, because of Copilot Studio and the agents, all of a sudden realizing, hey, we need AI Builder because it can do so many things, and we can incorporate that either into our regular process or cloud flows or whatever, but also within the Copilot Studio. So just the fact that there's a big section on it and there's a lot of new things that are coming out. Looks like mostly May, once in February, creating the perfect prompt within AI Builder as well. So, with help from Copilot. But yeah, so the highlighted thing to me was the process and generate documents from Copilot prompts, because AI Builder, to me, that is one of the things that's so good at, is processing documents like invoices and other images and getting that into data and spitting that out and allowing you to do actions and that kind of thing. So even I've been working with trying to build something where I'm getting an email and it's actually extracting information from that email and able to use that to do some downstream things. So that, I know I'm kind of all over the map here, but I'm a big fan of AI Builder, and I'm excited to see this it growing up and finally getting a little bit of responsibility within the Power Platform, and cases where we can actually use it in a project and actually demonstrate it, and customers can see the value a lot easier than maybe it could have been in the past.
Well, yeah, and I don't think that it's talked about nearly as much as it could be, because even now with the advent of AI as it is today, we have customers that still think that as soon as you want to kind of process something, that it's machine learning and it has to have a million copies to make a good to have a good confidence score and things like that. And it's not. It's fairly easy compared to what it used to be. So the thing that kind of stood out for me was streamlining the prompt generation with prompt fragments. It's publicly available from May, and it's GA in July. It's a new feature completely for AI Builder, where you're able to break your prompts up into small reusable components. So maybe you have a sentence that you want to reuse, or you have a good starting prompt, for instance, as an interaction designer, or some things that you want to use to provide consistency across your prompts, but also make sure that you capture common instructions and formats and phrases. So that really stood out for me as one of the favorite things for this prompt builder section of AI Builder. But yeah, also the fact that you can now manage multiple prompt iterations. It's public preview in May. You have versioning for prompts. That's very interesting. And you can compare different versions and see how well they're doing and which is performing better and which is getting more popular. And also that comes with ALM capabilities create, manage, and track multiple versions of prompts. That's really powerful. So this is really something to keep an eye on for sure. Anything else for AI Builder you wanted to touch on?
No, lots in AI Builder. Check it out. So before you lose power, let's move on.
Yeah, so Microsoft Dataverse. Now we have two categories left. It's Microsoft Dataverse and it's governance and admin before we get to the very juicy deprecated stuff. But so what it says for Microsoft Dataverse, they have a bit of a different introduction. They kind of talk more about what Dataverse is than what the key investment areas for this release wave is. So, but the four main areas that they've categorized their functionality within is data, workspace, and extend your Copilots with knowledge and actions, improve Copilot Studio ecosystem for enterprise scale, and fourth, the improved enterprise experience for PowerPlatform. And this is then this is Dataverse without the governance and admin bits. For me, it's a bit weird to keep those separated, but I know that that's the way it's been in the past as well. So, but sure. So what was the thing that stood out for you?
So the big thing that stood out for me, like I said, not really, well, interesting in terms of functionality that we're looking for. Functionality that I'm really surprised about is the ability to support large solution files up to 1 gigabyte. So for those of you working with ALM, you know the current solution size is 96 megabytes. Now, and I know in the projects that we're working on, which do have a lot of complexity, we have a lot of different things going on in terms of PowerPages, model-driven apps, Power Automate flows, plugins, the whole bit. That solution file is probably 20 to 30 megabytes, not exactly sure. But even then, in terms of the amount of time it takes to process through the pipelines for solution importing, some of the issues that we run into solutions, even that becomes a bit of a challenge sometimes. So the fact that someone is looking towards a 1 gigabyte, which is like 100 times or 50 times bigger than, let me do my math. Anyways, just way bigger than our solution file kind of surprises me. And I just kind of wonder what kind of scenarios would require a 1 gigabyte solution file. And maybe this is just for future expansion, but also I think with all the things with Copilot Studio and the agents becoming more solution aware, transporting that might take up a lot of space. So hopefully that also means some new solution improvements in terms of efficiencies, in terms of the solution imports and within pipelines and stuff. These things weren't called out specifically, but the fact that we're going to have large solution files kind of surprised me to go to that size. So if you're someone that actually has a solution file that could potentially approach into like a 1 gigabyte size, next time at an event or something, or over beers, let's chat about that, because I'm really curious to see what your experiences are with something that massive. So that was the big thing. Of course, a lot of other things happening with Dataverse, some stuff in terms of the sovereign clouds. Of course, Copilot, their integration into finance and operations. Of course, we deal with that sometimes too, with some of the dual right stuff. And of course, using Dataverse AI functions to enhance data quality. This is another thing that I think people kind of wonder, again, as I mentioned earlier, data rich, but information poor, AI to help clean up that data, make it a little bit more robust, make it more useful. That could be a very good thing. But again, there has to be a trust level there. And I'm not sure we're quite there yet in terms of letting AI fix data or clean up data. So again, Dataverse to me is the core of the Power Platform. It was interesting because we talk about Ignite. Ignite, there really was no discussion about Dataverse at all. It wasn't even mentioned. They talked a lot about Fabric and Fabric databases and SQL. And again, that was more of a generalized conference, but again, Dataverse was sort of missing. Its absence was sort of missed. But so it's good to see that Dataverse is being enhanced. Of course it is, because like I said, it is sort of the heart and soul of the Power Platform in my eyes. So it's good to see some of these things, and of course it being expanded and enhanced as well. But 1 gigabyte solution files, that kind of blows my mind a little bit. So what kind of stood out for you there?
Yeah, I have the same one. And my thought was PowerPages, actually, because if you have a PowerPages site and you have a lot of images and you have a lot of heavy files and stuff like that, then that could potentially drive the size up. I know that you can still have, even though you upload images to Dataverse now, it's using Azure Blob Storage behind the scenes, but I don't know how kind of that load is carried from one environment to another. I don't know if if that would increase the file size of the solution, if that's actually in, because now we see, because it says in the description, customers seamlessly work on larger volumes of data. And so that tells me that this is not necessarily configuration. Tables and columns and forms, they are metadata. But if it's actual data, then probably we're talking PowerPages, because that is, as far as I know, the only product actually moves data from one environment to another using solutions. So my bet would be actually close to home, and PowerPages. And it has new endpoints for these. We have new endpoints for these in the Microsoft Dataverse APIs. So make sure that if you're using the Microsoft Dataverse API to download and upload solutions, to be aware that they're changing the endpoints. That's kind of one of the things to look out for. Also, I saw that they're now, and I read this the wrong way, so just wanted to point that out in case anyone else did. Enable ISVs to submit custom Copilot agents for certification. I thought that meant that they could now submit kind of product bundled stuff, bundled, because it says you can now bundle packages and offer them. But I thought that meant that they could offer them in a store or something, but it's not. It's for that to count towards their, for instance, you have an application special certification things for partners and ISVs. So it's actually more targeted towards that. And then I also saw the expanded virtual table capability for sovereign clouds like GCC, GCC High, and DoD. So it's good for you guys. Finally get some updates.
Yeah, that was the number one, well, not the number one, the big question I got running the booth at Ignite. I show or talk to about some sort of feature or something in Dataverse. It might have been the plan designer. And the very first thing, like, is this available at GCC? And I'm like, oh, no. Or I'd say, oh, well, I have this problem. Oh, we'll do this. Yeah, we're at GCC. We can't do that. So, I mean, yeah. So Microsoft does throw you guys some love a little bit here and there. So
I feel for you guys. Have to be a special kind of crazy to work with that. Yeah. So anything else you wanted to touch on for Microsoft Dataverse?
No, they said build low code apps with Snowflake. So I'm going to plead ignorance a little bit on exactly what Snowflake is and what it does. I know there's a Snowflake connector. So again, this is probably something that I need to read a little bit more on what exactly Snowflake is. But if you are using it, well, yeah, you'll be able to create some low code apps using that as a connector within the Power Platform. So I think it is a virtual tables kind of thing. So it's like some of the other things like that. But yeah. So I will admit, I don't know. There's things I do know, things I kind of know, and things I don't know anything about. And Snowflake is one of them.
Yeah. So this is also related, I think, to the expanded virtual table capability in sovereign clouds. Sorry, because the virtual table feature is what that's about. What that is about, and that lists visualization of external data sources like SQL, Salesforce, SharePoint, Snowflake, Fabric, and Oracle. So those are, of course, then also available for the other ones. So I guess this means that you can create apps on your Snowflake data using PowerApps, and that goes probably for PowerPages down the line somewhere, and all the other juicy bits. All right, moving on to the last bulk of the release plans. The next most exciting things after deprecations is, of course, governance and admin. Where in this focus this time is on enhancements to the admin center, which we've already seen, and enhanced focus on Copilot adoption and security, tenant-wide inventory view, and simplified environment strategy to govern Power Platform tenants more efficiently and at scale. For those of you who have multiple Power Platform tenants and want to kind of admin them across. Upgrades to resource monitoring and pipelines, and also the admin connector for Power Automate. Get some nice little loves and updates. So anything stand up for you for this?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just needed to mention the categories. 3 categories: application lifecycle management, enterprise scale app administration, and security and compliance. Sorry.
Yeah, the couple things that point out for me, one interesting one, and I think this is actually beginning to roll out, or maybe, no, sorry, it's not. I think I probably saw a demo on this, was the secure data access using filtered views. So this is an interesting one. Yes, we can secure data with security roles in terms of based on the ownership of data. We can do column security, but this is new where you can secure access using filtered views. So you can say, I only want to allow people to see the opportunities in the city of Seattle kind of thing. And you could create that view and then provide only access, secure that data access. So that's kind of an interesting, another security tool in the toolbox, which is good in terms of data, because that's always a thing of what data you want people to see and not see. So that stood out. The other thing that stood out for me is the viewing all the pipelines and getting recommendations in the deployment hub. So again, this is the ALM features we're talking about. Be able to a single place to see all of these deployments happening across the board, where if you have multiple environments, and I think, we've seen this as well. It's like what pipelines have run when, which ones have failed, what's really going on with our whole ALM picture. This to me is pretty interesting, and also be able to get some kind of recommendations for our to allow some consistency there and everything like that. So they said more details on this will be coming soon. And it's like we can view the history of some of our pipelines and things. But again, this is another way to consolidate. It's really, I think the information is there, but it's just a way to consolidate that and make it a little bit easier for folks that are responsible for ALM and deployment processes, which we're kind of in that boat with what we're working on right now. So I'm excited about this. Another tool. That's great.
Yeah, no, for me, it's more that they're just moving the insights from one place to another. It's exactly what you get from the model-driven app that you have in your pipeline host, is that now people don't have to go in there to see it. You can see it from the admin center. So it's not really new. It's just same information, new place. But yeah.
Yeah. Which is always good.
Okay, if you say so.
It was opposed to kind of having to hunt and peck and search across different things. I think some of these high level views, again, the problem is, this is a problem, because I actually was, this opens up a little thread here about, we have application insights. We have the Center of Excellence toolkit. We have all of these, and then we have these new Power BI views in the admin center. There is, the information is there, but it is in a lot of places, and it's hard to figure out what's important and who. The question is, who is going to monitor that and who is supposed to be looking at that? So the more we can kind of get this to one spot, I think the better. I'm not sure if this is getting us all the way there, but that just sort of what triggered me is this is, again, if this is going to be, this is the source of information, this is where you go officially. I think that could help, but that's probably more discussion
and then
there.
This is going to be half baked, and then they're going to come up with another hub center something, right? Because they never really finished the one user interface and the one place, you one stop shop, everything's going to be perfect. We live in the pink colored world, and then there's another thing, and it just keeps piling on different views into the same kind of data. It just dilutes it makes the map very hard to see, and where should you go? And then you have the old and the new and the legacy and the deprecated, the classic. It's confusing to people. So unless they turn something old off, I'm not overwhelmed. And of course, the new improved Power Platform Admin Center is just such one thing, and it's all good and well, but it's old news. The fact that this is also old news, but very powerful, that you can now mask sensitive data fields with column level security. It's a way to eliminate bulk export of some fields, which is a common GDPR requirement in our region. So this is one of the things where we have a customer a request for information paper, and this is one of the requirements. We have to kind of make special. We have to develop this ourselves, but not anymore because this now is a part of the package. Admins can grant special privileges to selected users to see the sensitive fields as masked by default. And they can also have certain users have these sensitive fields open, but you can't bulk export these fields. And that's kind of where that requirement's coming from, I guess. So it's fantastic. And also, access to sensitive fields are audited to allow the security team to monitor for potential fraud, which is a huge deal. And this was public preview in August in 24, and it's going to be GA in April. So I really hope that that's going to be GA soon so that we can all use that in our production environments.
Yeah, that is cool.
So anything else you wanted to highlight?
No, I mean, yeah, there are a lot of features here. IP firewalls, managed identities, expanded virtual network support. I know that's definitely important to a lot of, again, talk about security and things like that, and who has access to certain things, permit or deny guest access to an environment as well. So a lot of, true governance stuff. And governance is one of these less than exciting topics, but extremely important. So again, there's a lot of good features. It's just trying to lock down things, make it more secure, protect your users from yourself, from themselves, and making sure your data is protected. Especially now we're living in a world, again, we have agents. We're doing this data security and protection of your data is going to be so important in terms of not only who you give access to your data, but what you give access to your data. So definitely keep an eye on that.
Yep. And absolutely. So one of the last things that caught my eye for this is delegate admin responsibility with group admin roles, which is going to be public preview in April, which is a way to kind of group admin controls or roles together and delegate different specialities to different users or different groups. It's a way to manage big enterprise solutions and environments where you have a lot of those, and also bulk operations on managed environments and create environment groups is also part of this. So this is a huge tool for those who are managing huge tenants and multi-tenant level environments. Right. So anything else before I dive into the juicy deprecations?
So for those of you who've been waiting for the deprecations, here we go.
For 1 hour, for those of you who are left, or
skipped
people,
ahead.
or skipped ahead. That is right. No, actually, this is just one of those dull moments for me. Which because I always look into the deprecations, it's worth having a look at. You'll get a list of the things that are being deprecated. And then I saw the Microsoft Dataverse legacy connector for Power Automate Flow is deprecated. And it's like, well, yes, old news. It's been since 2022. What else is new? And then I started to read because there is no alternative, right? So if you want to trigger a flow on a contact record, for instance, in Dataverse from the ribbon, you don't really have a choice. You have to use the legacy connector. And I had actually someone on the team commented, told me last week or something, why do you still use the legacy connection? I said, well, there's no option yet. So until Microsoft comes up with an option, I'm going to be forced to use the old one, aren't I? And then I started reading. It's like, you have to review your cloud flows and then swap this out before January 24. So that's 1 year ago. And most of them are using the when a row is selected, which I'm using to trigger something based on changes in environment. And then I learned, no. The new or the current Dataverse connector has that option. I didn't even look. So it's been there for 6 months?
We talked about this.
I know, but it just in the midst of everything, that was kind of the last of my worries was that thing. And just last week, I was telling someone off for just, fuck you. I need to use the legacy one. I've been using it a lot. They're not going to shut it off. They're not going to shut it off. Unless they come up with an alternative, it's not going to shut it. It completely missed me. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to own up to my mistake, and I'm going to go minus points for me for not paying attention, for not listening when you tell me or other teammates tell me, they have a new one.
We talked about this in one of our episodes. It was one of the updates. We talked about the whole fact that not only can we run it from selecting a row, but we can pass parameters to it as well. We were all excited about it.
Yeah. I still use the old one. It never resonated. It never came into it just went from, yes, I saw this is neat, this is exciting, and then it never registered. It just filtered through out the other end. So now I have to go through, I don't know how many current projects, I think 5. Yeah. I know them. I can do it, but it's just one of those things. So yeah, in the spirit of sharing things that maybe someone else can relate to, it's not just you with a Teflon mind. I'm in the boat with you. So I have to do
it. To be fair, it's happened to me as well, where I'm working, like I see something and I'm like, and then I realize like, oh yeah, this is a new way, or this is a different way. And like, oh, that's really cool. And then it's sort of like, wait a minute, we talked, and then the memory kicks in like, oh yeah, we talked about this way back when. So it's not just I am teasing you, because I do remember we did talk about this, but I'm positive if we look back in the last 50 episodes, there's probably a dozen things that I got excited about that I've completely forgotten about that I'm doing in actually,
to be fair to me, most of the things that we talk about are things that are being announced and they're in preview or they're kind of new. And also we say this all the time on the podcast. Something becomes GA. It's like, well, we talked about this ages ago, but you can't really use it in a production environment. And the solutions that we have now are very much in production. So of course, until it's GA, and then if I miss the GA, it's all the way gone. So I think it's also a byproduct of always being a little bit in touch of what's preview. I also have a reflex that I won't use anything in production right away. So I just have a lag or a delay for when I start using things. So I think it's more that I missed the GA date for this or something along those lines. I'll tell myself that at least. So please.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair, because I know there's things too. It's like, even in a project, like, oh, we could do it this way. And then you realize, oh, this is a preview feature. We shouldn't. Like, I think the low code plugins was one. I had a bunch of ideas and it's like, okay, it's still in preview. I think is it still in preview, or they renamed it? Anyways, I get you. It makes sense.
Yeah. I know. Actually, this week, I'm going to bash my head against a wall of preview features for 3 days in a row. Aren't I lucky? Because that is what the Hackathon ACDC is all about. And it's starting on Thursday. It's 3 days of hacking and bashing my head against the preview wall, get all bloody. But it's a lot of fun because I learned a lot of new stuff. So then I can use all the preview features I want. And that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to dive into AI and agents and plan designer and co-pilots and all that kind of stuff. And I just love how, chatbots are now coming back into the picture. And you talk about Microsoft Copilot chat that we saw last week or the week before. I was like, when I saw that announcement, I was like, he's got to be kidding, right? Microsoft Copilot chat?
Well, okay. That's a whole other rant. The fact that you need,
I know.
I saw a YouTube video explaining the difference between Microsoft 365 Copilot and Microsoft 365 Copilot chat. And to me, it's like, if you need to do a YouTube video on it, you screwed up in your naming and your branding. I'm sorry. It's a nice video. It was the person delivering it was wonderful, but it's sort of like, if you have to do it a video to explain these things, if I was a higher up, I'd be like, this isn't a good look, but that's just me. Yeah. And I'm going to be bummed out. I'm not going to the hackathon this year. So I'm going to major FOMO this week, but good luck on your team and everything. I'm sure it'll be wonderful, and excited to hear the results.
Yeah, and you're gonna be there in spirit. But you have other plans. It's not this week, but next week, right? Because you're traveling to this part of the country, but you're not coming to see me.
Well, you said you weren't around and you said you weren't available. So it's like,
Because you're going to be in Tallinn. Is that next week?
yeah, that's the end of January. So delivering that. So yeah, getting excited about that. I think converging and delivering a session on the developer side of PowerPages. I have some stuff I'm working on that I'm thinking I might even announce there in terms of some stuff I'm working on within PowerPages that I think is kind of very interesting. Let's just say that. And so looking forward to that. So yeah, a few things. Now we're getting to enter in the new conference season. Of course, it never really ends, but there are a little bit peaks and valleys. So yeah.
100%. And I can't wait to get back on the plane and then out in the other end. Because that's what we do. Yeah. All right. It was good chatting to you, and it was good to kind of go through it and have a feel of stuff. As you all now know, there's not a lot of new things in here, but there are some solidifications and some things to look forward to, especially in the Copilot stuff. So make sure to leave a comment on what your favorite thing was, and maybe we missed your favorite feature. Let us know and give us a bit of a smacking. We want to hear from you. All right. I'll catch you later, Nick. Have a wonderful rest of your morning. And I'll catch you soon.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. And if you like this episode, please make sure to share it with your friends and colleagues in the community. Make sure to leave a rating and review of your favorite streaming service, and makes it easier for others to find us. Follow us on the social media platforms and make sure you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening to the Power Platform Boost podcast with your hosts, Ulrika Ackerbeck and Nick Dolman, and see you next time for your timely boost of Power Platform news.